migrations today. The sort of dreaded subject, and there's something about migrations that turn people's legs to jelly. And if there's one thing I want to do today, that's to dispel the myth that you're going to lose traffic and you're going to lose position, because that's all it is. It's a myth, okay? But whenever people talk about migrations, the room fills with nerves, okay? The sort of nerves that are equivalent to the type of nerves that you would get if you were about to embark on a dangerous adventure. And I love adventures. Canoeing's my latest thing, but it's not that dangerous. But I went to Google and I typed in, what are the world's most dangerous adventures or activities? And this was number one, swimming with sharks. And I thought, what sort of nutters get in the water with sharks? Because you're going to get eaten. But it turns out that's not the case. Because people who swim with sharks, they're in a cage. They've got a wetsuit with mesh. Okay, they've got shark repellent, and there are people on standby to shoot the shark should it break through the cage and chew your arm off. Okay, so there's an awful lot of training, advice, preparation, and planning that goes into this. And here's another one. And I thought this was relevant to Leeds. Now, I love climbing. Anybody here like rock climbing? Leeds? Yeah, one here. But there are nutters out there. People like Alex Honnold who will climb a kilometre-high sheer wall without any ropes. And that's insane. That's highly dangerous. Okay, see where I'm going with this? You'll understand in a bit. But it turns out he doesn't just do that. He doesn't just go to El Cap, okay, Yosemite, and climb up it. He's been up and down it 15 times. He's climbed it with ropes. He's gone from the top down with a toothbrush and brushed every single hold. Training, advice, preparation, planning. He knows what he's doing. There's a lot of experience there. And here's another one. What sort of nutters do this? Well, nutters. You know, Jamwell, it's British tourists who've had 3 pints and think it's a damn good idea to run down the street only to be gouged by bulls. There's no training, and the only preparation is the 3 or 4 pints they've had before that. And that's where it all goes wrong. So the final and most relevant dangerous activity is migrating your website. And I saw somebody once said it's potentially one of the most dangerous online marketing activities that there is. And it is potentially dangerous, but it doesn't have to be that way. And the two questions I have, number one, why is migration, okay, or when we're migrating a website, why is SEO often left till right at the end? We're going to build a new site. We've built a new site. Somebody says, what about SEO? Don't worry, we're going to get the SEO guys to check it before it goes out. Because you know what? SEO guys have got magic dust. So the site's been built and they sprinkle it on it, and that's it, it's perfect, it's been SEO'd. You can't do that in the same way you cannot just SEO a web page in isolation. That's a myth as well. It's often left far too late. So here's a classic example of where it does go horribly wrong. This is all going to be positive in the end, but here's an example. I've got to show you some examples. And I'm using the sort of charts that some of you may be familiar with, okay? I'm not going to name and shame people like I normally always do, but I'm going to give you clues. And there are Easter eggs. And there will be hints, so you might be able to work out who some of these are. But here's a migration that went horribly wrong, okay, in May 2015. Okay, this was a platform migration. We're going from one platform to another. We're not even changing our URLs. How straightforward can that be? Okay? But look at that. So that's position 1 down to 100. We've got April through to 18th of May. A total disaster. A classic migration that went horribly wrong. I will tell you afterwards if you ask me who that was. Okay, here's another. And I'm sure a lot of people, if you've watched the SEO Press, you'll know this one. This is a multi-billion-pound global site. Screwed it up. It's a high street bank. Okay? Here we are, we got October 2015, we moved to the 16th or 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, and they've got a huge loss of visibility. But and look at those search terms. Business loans, business startup loans. These are big terms, and they've lost a lot. They simply can't be seen. But to be fair, this was a TLD migration, so you would expect that to happen. You'd expect a drop-off if they move from one top-level domain to another one. So let's take a look at the new domain, and let's look at the uplift, the fantastic uplift. Here it is. But is it fantastic? I'm not so sure. We've gone through the migration window. Let me step back. That was the visibility before, same terms, and that one's afterwards. Have they made up their positions? There's a migratory window that I'm going to talk about in a bit. But let's move 15 days on. We're outside the window. We should be pretty much back where we were. You know what? No, we shouldn't. We should be better than we were. The outcome, 15 days, a 28% loss in visibility. Okay, massive loss in revenues to this major high street bank. It's actually my bank. They send me that. My overdraft is going to get pulled. Okay, after 75 days, 35% visibility loss. This is a travesty. So let's move forward. Let's give them the benefits of the doubt. They've worked it out. They know they screwed up. They know they left SEO till the last minute. In actual fact, they know they didn't even bother. They got somebody to SEO the new domain. Here's a visibility index. We take all of the terms, okay, and we give them a score out of 100. If you're position 1 on page 1, you get 100, and that score goes down like a curve. That's like a standard CTR curve. So anything over 60 is good. And they're doing really well. So let's lay on the new TLD. Okay, and there it is. They never, ever quite recovered from that loss, and to this day, they haven't. Okay, they're spending a fortune on paid search now. So you search for those terms, see who's always in there. That's these guys. They're no longer there organically. And this is where the rumours start. You know the ones I mean, the old migration myth. Jono and I were talking about this earlier. And if you haven't heard of the migration myth, this is how it works. So imagine I've just got a new job in search. I'm the head of search at this big company based in London or based in Leeds. And they call me in. John, I've got a great challenge for you. I've only been there 6 months, I can't run yet. Got a great challenge. We're going to migrate the site and you're going to run it. You're in charge. You're going to see it through to the end. Well, okay, yeah, that's fine. So what do you do at the end of the day? Go down to the pub. You go to the pub, and I could meet a bunch of guys like you. There's a bunch of people from marketing, there's people from tech, there's even a few SEO people there, old friends. And I tell them the exciting news. I've got a new challenge. I'm going to get a bonus. Okay, I'm going to go to Aruba on my holiday this Christmas. And then, in that instant, they all turn into electricians. And I can say this because my brother's an electrician. When I tell them about the migration, they go, you're going to lose traffic. Oh, it's going to be terrible. I say, what? How much traffic? And they say, oh, between 20 and 50%. But don't worry, that's standard. That's standard for migrations. So I've got that in my mind, and I go home. And I open the door, and it's my son, Charlie. He said, Dad, what's wrong? You know, you look in shock. And I say, I am shocked. All the guys down the pub say, that's it, my bonus is gone. There's no Aruba. We're going to the Lake District instead, which is actually true, but I think the Lake District is quite cool. So he says, forget those guys. Go to Google and have a look. So I go to Google and I type this in. How much traffic could we lose when we migrate? Good old Google changes it. Do you mean how much traffic would you lose? Now, Jesus. Even Google's against me. And the first one, inside on, you're going to lose 45%. Oh my God, they were right. The site could die. I might as well kill myself now. I've got a Bogner. Nothing wrong with those places. 60 to 70%, or it depends. So that's the migratory myth. We're going to dispel all of that, and I'm going to show you some examples of where the opposite happens. So it doesn't have to be that way. And you know what? I always say to clients, migration is a great opportunity to improve, an opportunity to find out why we're not doing so well. What's going on? Who are our competitors? Who's doing better than us? And how can we do better than them? This is a chance to fix things and put things right and get those tech guys on our side. There are 5 key things. Okay, there's about 50. And there are a million guides online to how to get a migration right. And I didn't just want to repeat that, because you might as well have just gone to Google and looked it up and got your standard migration checklist. But here are 5 things that we encounter regularly. Okay, and here's the first one. I'm going to show you some examples of these. Number 1, without number 1, nothing else matters. If SEO is not involved at the very start, in the statement of work, right at the beginning, forget all the rest. It's going to go wrong. Okay? Redirects and mapping, of course, they're on everybody's list. And they have to be. They're the bread and butter. In the middle, we've got data. Data is the glue that holds all of this together. This is your damage mitigation tool, your data, especially before and during that migration window. Okay? You need an owner. Okay? And this one, I saw this on Monday. You've got to stop the stage from getting out because they're always out there in the wild. And that causes internal conflict. And then your current site's going to start failing before you migrate it. So, involve SEO from the start. And I've got an example of where this didn't happen. I was called into a company in London. And there's a guy I knew. And he said, oh, we're building a new site, we're migrating, we're going to create something wonderful. I said, brilliant, I'll come in and help you. So I turned up. You know what he did? There's a bunch of people in the room, okay, and from marketing, and they got it up on the screen, and they got all these scamps and templates, this wonderful looking new site, and I asked them questions. I just thought, guys, this isn't going to work. Turns out they'd spent at least 10K, probably more towards 20K, on getting all of this pre-work done, all of these fancy designs. I said, guys, that ain't going to work. They said, well, we've got to do it. We can SEO it afterwards. And I said, we can't do that. I said, why have you got to do it? I said, forget the money. It's going to cost you more to fix it. And he said, well, we sold it into the CEO. And she loves it. And the board love it. And everybody loves it. So we've got to go through with it now, or we're going to look dumb. And that's happened more than once. Okay. Now, you can get SEO involved in right at the start, put that plan out on a sheet of A1, okay, and look at all the checkpoints. What do we call them? Touch points. Write SEO against those. It's going to be involved here, 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 and make sure that happens. And you need somebody who's experienced. You need somebody who's been through it, not just read about it and got a checklist online. You need to go through it to see how it works. Okay, I have to talk about redirects and mapping, even though everybody knows that you need to do them. So I'm going to use some examples in a second. But it's essential that you crawl your site, every single page, okay? And don't just get those URLs, but actually map out the titles, the header ones, the meta description. This gives you a chance to get a feel for your site, to look at opportunity. You know what? Those pages are all so similar. We can aggregate those. We can push those actually into 1 or 2 pages instead of 30 because they are so similar. Okay? What else can we do? If you're in pre-build phase, as I said there, you can actually review your theming because you don't want to migrate bad theming into bad theming on a better platform because you're going to pick up more internal conflict. If you don't do that mapping, this is what can happen. Something you don't want to ever wake up to is that steady rise in soft 404s. Now, I've got a feeling, this company is a multi-billion pound company. Can I give a clue now? I don't know, maybe in a minute. A massive company. They will have lost millions because of this. That's the steady rise in soft 404s caused because post-migration, there's a load of pages still hanging around, still indexed in the SERPs. Let's look at their visibility. Look at that. So, around the 1st of April, I haven't put the terms because it'd be too obvious and you'd guess who they were, okay? But there are clues. The 1st of April, imagine that. You've migrated, you come in, and you see that. Somebody slides that chart in front of you. Jesus, can you imagine that? Can you imagine you're in charge of this, and that happens? And then you see, it's 1st of April. Somebody's just playing a trick on me. So I can breathe now. Pick myself back off the floor. And then somebody else says, actually, John, it's the 2nd of April. That was yesterday. You're stuffed, okay? You've got to go and see the CEO. And then I start thinking, hang on. Remember when I met the guys down the pub? Yeah, the electricians, the marketing people, the SEO guys, and they all said, you've got to expect 20 to 50%. So we all stand around, we look at, yeah, 50%. We expected that, so it's fine. And that's why, I jump back, We don't even think about those anymore because we don't even know what a soft 404 is, so we don't have to worry about it, okay, because that's quite standard. And every day, week on week, they are losing millions of pounds in revenue because, I'll tell you what they did or they didn't. They mapped out their URLs, the old ones, the new ones. They did a pretty damn good job of migrating a 301, redirecting most of them across. And then there's a whole bunch of URLs, and they thought, I don't know what to do with those, but maybe we've left it a little bit late. We're not sure what the new URLs are yet. We won't find out till next week, but damn it, let's go ahead and do this anyway, because I'm going on holiday tomorrow, and I just want this done so I don't have to worry about it. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take those URLs, and we'll migrate them to the home page. We'll 302 them to the home page. So they're still in the SERPs. That caused a steady rise in in software 404s, and they lost all their traffic. So actually, I didn't even tell you the cause and the fix. So we clearly need an audit, and that's where data comes in very handy, because we need to go back in time, look at all those search terms, and see which pages were positioning well, and that will help us actually to map the old onto the new. But if you do mess up, if you don't plan, it's going to take you a long time to get that authority back up. You cannot just switch that back on. But if you do it right, that's not going to happen. Okay, utilize data. And I said data is your damage mitigation tool, and it really is. Okay, data's wonderful. And here I'm specifically talking about SERPs data, because before we migrate, let's get a picture of how we're doing. Okay, let's analyze our performance. Let's compare our performance with our competitors. Okay, let's crucially, and I have to say this, let's look for that internal conflict that we've currently got. Let's not take that conflict across to the new site. Let's iron that out before we migrate. This gives us a chance to work out opportunities. I'm actually on page 2 and 3 for this huge bunch of terms here. Why am I on page 2 and 3? Because architecturally, Google's confused with my site. We've got issues with the coding. We've got all sorts of issues. Well, let's fix that as we migrate. That's why data is wonderful. But during that migration window, data comes into its own. Okay, the migration window, it lasts between 7 and 14 days from when you flick the switch. Okay? So by example, here's where it went well. This is a huge organization who was position 1 for best Bollywood movies. That's a massive term, and I can tell you, they were getting a lot of traffic. So this is an online movie business, getting a lot of traffic. You can see how popular it is. Anything could have come up there, but it's best Bollywood movies. So we flick the switch. The migration window is there. Several days after that, for several days, the old URL was appearing, and then that was replaced, position 1 for position 1, by the new domain. And this was actually a domain migration, so it wasn't just a platform, it was domain and platform. Okay, SEO got in early. SEO got in day 1 as we sat around and thought, I know, let's migrate domains. SEO was at the table. SEO was with tech. SEO bought donuts for tech. We actually did, took them for pizza and did all of that. We spoke their language, we spoke the language of marketing. Best Bollywood movies, here's another search term. And another scenario, brief coexistence. Don't be afraid of this. Brief coexistence can happen for 2 or 3 days. In this case, family films in 2 days. Old URL, position 1, new URL, position 2. Same on the next day, and then one switches out. Don't be afraid if you get coexistence with a couple of drops. And that can happen for 4 or 5 days, and then it kicks in. But hopefully you get a like for like. Or even better than that, good uplift, okay? New action movies. Turns out they were suffering from internal conflict, okay? Because all of their action movies were competing with each other because they didn't have a proper action movies hub page. Need to speed up. So we fixed that, created a hub page, came out of the migration, and then it got a 30 position uplift, and then it went up onto page 1. And there's another one, a glass ceiling caused by that same thing. 20 position uplift, and all of these did go on to do much better. When I say make sure there's an owner, you've got to have one person responsible. Responsibility, involvement, and empowerment. They need They need responsibility and authority. Okay? They need to be credible. They've got to be involved at every single stage, and they need to be empowered to actually stand up and say, no, you have to do that. Because if you don't do that, we're going to lose. Okay? Because too often, if they're not empowered, and they know they're going to lose 30 or 40% of traffic, when IT come back and say, we'll put that in phase 2, they might think, oh, that's why people lose 30%? Because there is that pushback, so I'm happy with it. But don't be happy with it. You need that. And then finally, and I saw this only on Monday, a stage started getting released because the robots.txt only blocks crawling and on indexing. And they also have a suspicion that if you pass stage URLs around in Gmail, Google's going to see those and index it as well. But that's just a hunch, because I've seen them get out in all sorts of places. So IP whitelisting, user login, no index meta, much more robust ways of making sure. Because if that gets out, it's not just a case it's got out, but it's also highly likely to conflict because it's an exact duplicate, and you'll find your main site loses visibility. So in summary, okay, just get in early. It's not magic dust. You can't SEO it afterwards. Use that data and all of those other things up there. Ignore the migratory myth. Today, it stops. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions for John before we break out for coffee?
We can always do it.
Yep.
So what would be your top tip for domain name migration?
Give me an example.
Well, if we're moving one domain name to another domain name, so
Is
changing
it?
the entire URL.
Yeah, it's quite complex. I've been having these discussions with a client recently. They want to make up a brand new domain, and that kind of worries me. In some cases, you can buy a historic domain, but then you need to do your due diligence on that to see where it's been and what its authority is, and you need to go back in time. So I'd use Wayback Machine for that as well.
And if it wasn't, and you weren't going to purchase one, and it was more brand-centric, what would you approach?
I would get my 301s absolutely spot on. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And do everything I can to take what I've got now and improve it and stop thinking about the myth. Cool.
John, I've got a question for you. So I've got a budget for a new website build.
Yep.
What percentage of that budget do I need to allocate to a successful migration?
I've never been asked that question, but I guess it depends on the complexity. But SEO, as I keep saying, you can't do it afterwards. It needs to be, and if you're doing it afterwards and you're spending 5% on it, you need to do it right at the start and start thinking about spending 25% on it.
Okay. Any other questions? One at the back there, yes?
You talked a lot about migrations and how they might go off from a traffic perspective.
Yep.
But what about conversion?
What about conversion? That's a good question. And certainly conversion is something you would need to look at. And I would look at my current conversion and see where I'm failing and see where I can improve, and certainly build that in. Really look, how can I improve my conversion rates? I'm getting an awful lot of traffic, but for some reason people aren't converting. There'll be a reason for that. And so there's a conversion process that you could go to. Because I was talking about improving visibility, but you need to look at ways to improve every aspect of your site. And I'd include usability in that as well. The amount of people who actually migrate without user testing is astonishing, and a conversion can drop. Because it looks amazing, this new site, but actually doesn't work. I could give an example, but I can't. Maybe afterwards.
Any other questions? Right. Thank you, John.
Thanks, guys.